the federal government clarifying the flood issue. The recent Maiduguri flood was caused by the overflow of Ngadda River and not due to the collapse of Alau Dam as speculated. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Engineer Joseph Otsev, explained during the briefing in Abuja that the Alau Dam, located near Maiduguri, BORNO State, remains intact. The flood resulted from excessive rainfall due to climate change, which caused the river to overflow, overwhelming the dam's dike. Now, Otsev explained or emphasized that while the dam did not collapse, excess water from tributaries, including the Ngadda River, led to the overflow, causing flooding in Maiduguri and Jere areas. The dam is situated about 10 kilometers from Maiduguri city. We heard, I can't really explain why people just ran and said it was the dam that collapsed. But before then, we heard reports that we should be careful. There are speculations that the dam might get to collapse. And after then, we see Maiduguri flooded. We see BORNO State flooded. And now we're hearing that even down to Bayelsa State flooded. So now the federal government is coming to clarify that it's as a result of excessive rainfall. Dema, how do you see this story?
I am not so worried about the conflicting stories about whether it was the dam or not the dam. The question is the flooding is not happening. It's not a new thing in Nigeria. We have witnessed a lot of flooding in Nigeria.
True.
In fact, almost every year you will get a report of a flood incident in a particular city in Nigeria. The question is, what are we doing? What are the proactive measures that have been put in place? What structures have been put in place to mitigate the damages and impacts that will come up that as a result of flooding? We don't wait for flooding. We act before the flooding. We don't wait for properties to be destroyed. We take proactive measures. Look at our infrastructure. What infrastructure have the governments put in place to mitigate or reduce the impact of loss of lives and properties? As we keep saying, and it keeps happening, we don't need a prophet or space scientist to tell you that this is a problem that must be addressed.
If it's not yet addressed, do you think it's something the government can really handle?
Yes, the government have a responsibility. They can't totally solve the problems, but they can, to a large extent, control. Because flooding, for example, now in BORNO State, we experience it here in the Niger Delta, in the southern states, in Bayelsa, in Rivers, we experience this flooding. Look at the structures on ground. First, look at the infrastructure. Do we have good drainage system that can channel water? Do we have flood agencies that can work together? We have emergency agencies.
Yes.
The emergency agencies we have, are they waiting for flooding before they start reacting?
That's another big question, because this story talked about the federal government. After explaining the BORNO flood, they also got to tell us that, look, the Niger Delta should prepare themselves. We heard reports the other day about Bayelsa, but then River State should also get prepared. But then the thing is, how much preparation have we really seen? Let's not go too far. We're in River State. How much preparation have we really seen going on in this state, preparing for the flood? We know the flood-prone areas, like one of our guests said the other day.
When we talk about preparation, it involves, number one, the government and all stakeholders. There should be joint approach in addressing this disaster. We cannot take off climate change. There should be more orientation and sensitization on climate change, because climate change is a serious threat to our environment. Policies by the lawmakers should be focused on how to mitigate and support environmentally sustainable projects that will help people, especially at the grassroots, Many of them are not even aware of what climate change is all about. They don't even know what climate change is. Some know, but some don't know. There should be more education. Areas that there should be tree planting should be encouraged. There should be climate change clubs in schools. The children should be taught about climate change. There should be more orientation in our rural areas, in our town halls, in our villages. The chiefs, the traditional rulers, community leaders, they should be working together with the Ministry of Environment to spread this message, pass this information across, dissemination of this information, communication, passing out the campaigns on climate change, on environmentally friendly programs, on tree planting. The children in schools should be taught. In the universities, there should be clubs. These are how you prepare. You don't sit down and wait for the next floods. You sit, you stand up, or you want to sit, prepare. Because it will happen. And it keeps happening. And insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a new result. You don't keep applying the same medication that's not working. You try something new.
We're over looking at immediate measures now. Because even if we act now, it's more like, besides being proactive, I don't know if I'm going to call that proactivity anymore. It's going to look more like a reaction, right? But then, how are we even reacting to this? We've heard before the BORNO flood. We've heard about the flooding coming all the way to River State. We've been told before time to prepare ourselves that this might happen in River State also. And now it's in BORNO, down to Bayelsa. And then we're asking, these other states that have been mentioned, it's not just River State, these other states that have been mentioned, how come we've not seen so much in the media as to what is being done, as to, you know, preparing a place where the people would actually be kept, like a camp or something done by the government? We've not really seen much of this in the media. And that's why I'm asking you, from your analysis, how much do you think is being done currently, you know, to cushion the effect? Because it will definitely come. I don't know if it's something that we can prevent at the state it is currently. So how much have we really done to like put things in place to make sure that we don't have loss of lives and property as much as it would be when there's no preparation?
I'm not furnished with all the ideas with what the government is doing to prevent or mitigate or reduce the impacts of what flooding can cause. But what I can say is that it's not too, I can't score them high. The government, especially the state governments, should immediately have a stakeholders conference on flooding and the impact of climate change. They should not wait until Port Harcourt is flooded, businesses destroyed, lives lost, and properties destroyed. They should take a step. They should take a stand. They should act. Now, I don't know if we have let's say a flood, an emergency center or a camp for displaced persons. Do we have a camp that can accommodate a well-furnished camp with hospital, medical facility, and all the necessary facilities that can accommodate displaced persons as a result of flooding in River State? Do we have such centers at least located in the various senatorial zones and in Port Harcourt where people can run to in case of emergency? Do we have a medical team that is working together with the emergency agencies of the state to go to those areas that are prone to floods and start sensitizing and working with the people? Because when there is flooding, there is a health risk, diseases spread, a lot of infrastructure is destroyed, people's life at risk, water, clean water, sewage, waste, all these environmental issues arise as a result of flooding. It opens up a can of worms. So what should we do and what can we do now? The now action is, number one, the government should have a stakeholders meeting with health personnel, environmental officials, all the relevant stakeholders, and the government should set up an emergency camp at the various senatorial districts of the states. They should have centers equipped with medical facilities that can accommodate people that are displaced or will be displaced, or people, when they are displaced, they can go to that place, emergency centers. These centers should be accessible, should be built in areas that will not even be flooded themselves. People can easily access them. There should be emergency numbers that people can call when when flood has. Many communities suffer during flooding. Many people lose their farmlands, their properties. Almost everything they've worked for in their life is lost as a result of flooding. We saw the last flood incident in Rivers State. It was a pitiable situation. It was so pitiable that you see that many human beings were living like refugees in their own country, in their own state. So we don't wait for flooding, we act. So I will advise the government, especially our wonderful governor, to please take steps. Don't wait for the floods. The commissioners, the members in the House of Assembly, the politicians, political leaders, let us start acting now to prevent the lives and properties that will be lost as a result of flooding. We can't stop it entirely, but we can, to a large extent, mitigate, manage, control, coordinate, regulate, and not allow it to skyrocket to a point where we are just helpless. That's why God has given us wisdom, common sense, to think outside the box. And we can start thinking now, not waiting for the poor women in the village that will be running because their houses have been flooded, their farms flooded, no clean water, no good sewage. So we need to start acting now. In fact, there should be a bill by the State House of Assembly on climate change, the impact of climate change on the citizens. And in that bill, there should be laws that should be put in place that can help. They should build centers that can accommodate displaced persons. The idea of taking these people to school buildings, you are now inconveniencing the people that should be using that for learning, and most of those public school buildings are in a dilapidated and poor condition. And these people that are traumatized as a result of the flooding, that have destroyed their properties, destroyed their source of livelihoods, they don't have clean water, no sewage, no good toilets, living in you take them to a classroom where there are mosquitoes, no mosquito-treated nets, they have little babies that were exposed to these mosquitoes, and they suffer from malaria, and they suffer from typhoid, they suffer from different ailments, and most of them end up losing their lives. Some escape the flood, they don't escape malaria, they don't escape disease, they die as a result of that. Look at the little children. I'll give you a practical example. When I was volunteering for an IDP camp in the Northeast, I went to this IDP camp as a volunteer. And what I saw in that IDP camp, I stood for some time and I asked myself, this is man's inhumanity to man. Human beings living in a pitiable situation, in squalor. The IDP camp where they are little babies that are sleeping on bare floors, on bare, just ordinary ground, just a piece of wrapper, and they're sleeping on, some are sleeping on mats, and there's no mosquito nets. The classroom where they are staying, no good windows, no good doors, no good food, nothing, no good nutrition. You see babies malnourished, like the pictures during the Civil War, where children were kwashoko. You can see the stomach protruding out with bones. What I saw with my 2 eyes when I was volunteering in an IDP camp. We saw a baby, if we were 5 minutes late, that baby would have died. The baby was malnourished, and the parents were traumatized, and they told us they've not even eaten.
Wow.
The people responsible, the government officials that should be giving them supplies and emergency reliefs, they barely get it. And so we went there, and we got them mosquito-treated nets, because the babies are sleeping in a very terrible state, in mosquitoes and everything. And we got them mosquito-treated nets. We got them some, we went with a medical team to give them some medication. I was a mental health official, so I was trying to do some mental health services. I saw a little boy in the IDP camp right there. He lost all his family. They were all killed by bandits, and his parents, his sisters, his siblings. The little boy was traumatized.
It's very pathetic.
It's a pathetic situation. So I was there to console him. That little boy, if you sit with him, if he hears sound, he will be shocked.
Trauma.
Because the trauma, the shock, he witnessed his parents being killed. He witnessed his entire family wiped off by bandits. Here he is in an IDP camp. He's not sure of his education. He's not sure of his future. He's not sure of his tomorrow.
One would imagine what IDP camps are actually meant for.
The word IDP is internally displaced persons. Do you know Nigeria? We have millions of people that are internally displaced. But we even have more that are mentally displaced, emotionally displaced, financially displaced. That's why when you're walking the streets, a lot of people you see that are on the road, a lot of people on the streets, they are mentally and emotionally and financially displaced. A lot of them are tensed. It's like a nation that is tensed. So people have lost touch with their humanity. Why? Because they have lived in an exploitative state for too long. They've been left out of development. Many communities, there is complete absence of governance and government. Not because they don't have political representatives, but because the political representatives are not seen when they should be seen. They are only seen during campaigns.
So people would go to those IDP camps in such situation and they would campaign.
Well, they could go to the IDP camps to campaign when they're looking for votes.
The reason I asked earlier, with all of these explanations that you gave and some of the documentaries that we have seen concerning these IDP camps and the state of these IDP camps, one would wonder what the reason for the IDP camp was initially. What is the original reason for putting up these camps? Because it's now looking like it has a different purpose right now with all of these explanations and what we get to see.